All right, Kirsten, you want to start the presentation?
Yes, I will get that up right now.
All right, let's get started. I just want to thank everybody for joining us for the cyber insurance webinar, Risk to Readiness, this holiday season. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll address them at the end. And also, we're going to have a little raffle at the end, so stay on and see if you're the winner. So, all right. A little bit about ECMSI in case you're not familiar with us. I'm the owner. I'm Ralph Blanco. We are been in business for a while now, so we've been around the block. We've been in business since 1999. We are a fully managed service provider. We provide managed IT services, co-manage IT if you have internal IT to help with security and infrastructure, cybersecurity, compliance as a service, cloud solutions. We have 3 locations. Struthers, Warren, and Cleveland. We're about to launch our 4th one in December 1st in Canton. We're proud that we are award-winning IT service team from CRN MSP 500 in 2025, also the CRN Women of the Channel 2025, and Channel Partners MSP 501 winner for 2025. A little bit about our competitive advantage that we feel is we guarantee an average response times of 29 minutes or less. We are fully local and remote. We don't outsource anything. We've been in business for over 25 years. We have a local network security team. We're very proactive in our processes, and we're 24/7 support. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce a couple of our partners that were gracious enough to join us for this webinar and the experts. We spend a lot of time vetting our partners so that we could help educate our clients and continue to keep them protected and safe. So in the room from UConn, we have Wilson Henry and Andy Runyon, and they'll be covering the cyber security portion of this. And then we also have Kevin Davey from our partner Cynet. He's a product specialist, and he'll be informing you about our tools. So I also want to give a special thank you to Kirsten, who is running this presentation, and Lauren for putting this together for us. So now I'll pass the torch over to Wilson and Andy to run from here.
Good deal. Thank you, Ralph, and appreciate you having us on today, guys. I'm Andy Runyon. I'm our Director of Strategic Alliances here at UConn. Also self-professed major Bluey fan. If you can't see the shirt, told my daughter as I was leaving the house today that I had a big presentation. She was like, "Dad, you've got to wear your Bluey shirt." So here we are. And I've got Wilson with me. He's one of our cyber risk experts. I'm in Arkansas. Wilson's in Pittsburgh. UConn is a cyber insurance and tech errors and emissions specialist wholesaler, which is a mouthful. But what that means is we have access to about 57 markets, and we specialize in cyber insurance only. We partner with Ralph and his team to make sure that we provide his customers with the best in market availability and education. So before we dive into this thing, and I'll apologize up front, but as a Southerner and a history guy, we do like to go backwards before we go forwards a little bit and kind of talk about how we got into this moment where folks on the IT MSP side are doing a presentation with insurance people. It may seem strange, right? Prior to COVID hitting in the 2010s, if you were a small business, small to medium-sized business, and you were looking for cyber insurance, not many of you were. There wasn't a very high level of uptake at that time, but there was almost no underwriting. And what that term means is the questions being asked of the entity or the company of what are you doing from a cybersecurity standpoint. The questions that were asked were name, address, revenue, maybe website, have you had a loss in the last couple of years? And are you in any weird industries? Like, are you in, marijuana or adult film or casino or, anything that was kind of hard to understand at the time from a legality standpoint? Pretty much everybody could get a policy. Well, then COVID hit. And when we speak about COVID, we don't really talk about it from a medical or political standpoint. It's more of a technological marker in time because cybercrime shifted with remote work. Cybercrime shifted down from pretty much relegated for large size businesses to the SMB. And we saw a lot of attacks down channel or downriver. And we saw a lot of more claims. We saw the severity of claims rise, right? And then out of those COVID years, guys, insurers, they have to, I'm not going to get into the weeds on loss ratio or anything like that, but they have to take in more money than they pay out or they'll go insolvent, right? Like that's how insurance works. There were quite a few insurers through the COVID years that were actually paying out more in claims than they were taking in premium. So the market had to adjust. And what happened was in the post-COVID years, a very hard market emerged. And we started seeing questions. If you have cyber insurance, you've probably seen these questions or these long form apps that are asking about MFA, EDR, MDR, security awareness training, backups. Carriers were less likely to issue a policy, right? The premiums went up. Some of the carriers that had a lot of skin in the game before COVID, they actually pulled back their appetite. They started kind of denying claims a little bit. Some really strange narratives entered about cyber insurance. And it was a very, very tumultuous period. And where we arrive today in 2025, and you'll see this in the information that we present today, we have a much more stable market. When we say selectively hard, technically the market is overall soft if you have the right controls in place. So if you are a customer of Ralph's and you have the right controls in place, your premium will be at the bottom of the scale. The acceptance, you'll get multiple quotes to compare to each other. You'll have lower deductibles, those type things. You'll have more of a likelihood of your claim being paid, right? And so where we're at today is a much more mature market with a lot wider acceptance. So again, apologize for the history nerd dive there, but I think that kind of sets the table for where we're going to go next. So from here, that's where Wilson, I'm going to kind of hand it over to you. Wilson is our, like I said, he's our cyber risk expert there in Pittsburgh. And one of the things we want to leave you guys with some functional, guys and gals, functional knowledge around cyber insurance. And where we like to start is like, what does good versus bad coverage look like? Because there is a wide scale, of insurance coverage out there. So Wilson, I'll pass it over to you, man.
Yep. When I talk to businesses around, cyber and risk and placement of policy, we're talking about transferring, the risk or liability that you have to a insurance policy and making sure now that we transfer enough. Right. And we have enough if that event were to occur, right? You can protect yourself as much as possible, but when that event occurs, you want to have enough, and a comprehensive cyber insurance policy now in 2025 is what businesses need, right? Before, Andy was talking about, not a lot of cyber attacks. Cyber attacks weren't as prevalent. They weren't as costly. Endorsements and riders that are showing up on the screen were great 10 to 15 years ago for small businesses. Nowadays, you need help. You need assistance that a comprehensive policy brings in. It's not only, the aggregate limit being higher. It's, services around incident response. And you can go to the next slide as well. And you can see the premiums aren't as high. But these comprehensive carriers have things around lawyers coming in to help you with notification costs if affected data was affected, and the process around a ransomware event or sending and receiving money and money being lost. So you can see the differences in coverages. And nowadays, the average claim for a small business is upwards of $400,000, even more probably now in 2025. So having the right coverage, because there's so much bad coverage out there, is key. And a 1 million aggregate limit policy is not for everyone. Right? We use that as the example, but that's the baseline now for small businesses and up. You as an organization need to figure out the liability you have and the amount of coverage that you need on the back end if that catastrophic day hits. And that's the biggest thing we look into when comparing and contrasting policies, which I do on a daily basis. And most, it goes back kind of to your agent and what they're presenting and their access to coverages and their knowledge around cyber insurance. So having a good conversation, especially around renewal time, don't wait till the last minute around cyber. Cyber should be one of the first discussions out that happen.
Yeah, one of the things, Wilson, I've noticed too, with local brokers, like they have a local insurance agent. They subcontract that all out, right? The cyber stuff, because they're relatively, they don't know it, they don't understand it. And then they end up subbing it out to somebody, if it's a Beasley's or whatever, but they're not asking the appropriate questions. The reason I like dealing with you guys and talking to you guys is because this is all you do. You live the cyber world, and it's a specialty niche that I'm seeing out there. So.
Yes, no, it's a great point. And I'll tell you, Ralph, it's a fine line to walk, and we acknowledge this, right? So let's go on and kind of discuss the elephant in the room. I think it's a great point. Many businesses work with local brokers that they have known for years, right? And they have that trust, and that local broker has handled work comp claims for them, or fire claims, or wind and hail damage, or whatever, right? And for everybody on the call, UConn is a wholesaler. We work with those local brokers. We provide them the specialty knowledge and the market access. We're not trying to supplant your local broker. We work in hand in glove with them. But what we see quite often is we'll see small businesses that come to us hat in hand, and they'll say, look, we love our local guy. I was in a fraternity with him in college. I play golf with him on the weekend, but man, when it comes to cyber stuff, I get a kind of a 10,000 foot stare, and a lot of uhs and ands and maybes, so yeah, that is one of the things that working with UConn can bring, is that specialty to work with the broker and not against them. All right, next slide. Let's look at a little bit about the most common questions that come up. And as specialist brokers, we get the same questions over and over again, right? Not to say that we don't deal with niche or specialty risks, but there are some common themes that do pop up when it comes to dealing with cyber. So again, trying to give you functional things to leave with today. First, we're going to look at loss quantification, knowing how much to buy. It's not an exact science, but you can do better than just going out there and slapping $1 million or 500K on. How much does it cost? I mentioned earlier the history of cyber and kind of the volatility of the market. There's very much a what you could pay versus what you should pay dynamic right now. And then lastly, kind of looping in the relationship with ECMSI, what controls will make me more insurable or make me look better when I show up to the cyber insurance dance. So we'll dive into each of those, and let's start with that loss quantification and how much to buy. When we look at loss quantifications, go ahead and if we can flip over to the next slide there. First things, just high level stats. And this, folks, if you're listening, if you're on the call today, Wilson and I both have backgrounds in education and education's at the heart. This is not us trying to scare the britches off of anybody. This is just honest to goodness reporting from Sophos, which is a massive cybersecurity firm. Number one, the size of events, you can see up to 2.73 million in 2024. The size and cost of these events is increasing. And even down to the less than $10 million revenue bucket, that average all-in cost, and I mean not just ransom payment, but notification costs, fines and penalties, downtime, loss of business, reputational harm, all of those things. The average cost in this report, which polled almost 10,000 people or 10,000 businesses, if you were less than 10 million in revenue, that all-in ransomware event was about 1.8 million, even at the smallest level in 2024. Wilson, anything on the insurance, quantify or loss quantification side of things?
Yeah. I think industry is a big portion in picking limits. Different industries do different things, right? You got manufacturers manufacturing goods, having supply chain issues. You have dentist office not being able to see patients for 2 weeks. What does it look like internally? So it's look internally and have a strategic risk discussion. What does a cyber attack look like? How can we be affected? And think around things. We'll bring it up, but there's a lot of think about the third party, applications that you're using, different things internally that keep your business afloat and ring that cash register. Very important.
Yep. All right, next slide will show us, I believe that this is a stat. Yeah, this is the number one. Obviously, from that Sophos report, there was a ton of statistical information there, right? The number one thing that Wilson and I, are seeing in the market today, and folks, I'll just stab the elephant in the gut right here. This is not us trying to say, hey, you need to buy more insurance and it'll fix everything, right? That is not what we're saying. What we are saying is, if historically on cyber insurance, you've just thrown on a $250,000 rider, or you bought $1 million of general liability and you bought $1 million of work comp and $1 million of business auto, so you got $1 million of cyber just because that's what you had for everything else. What we are seeing in the market within that report, and we see this every day too, by the way, we see customers that purchase cyber. They don't know how much to buy because nobody's consulted them on what their risk looks like. And then they have a claim. And the reason that they're not fully covered, is that the total cost of the event outkicks the coverage, right? You'll have a $1.8 million event, but you only have $1 million of coverage. We are not seeing a lot of claim denials right now. We aren't seeing people coming in and patently saying, yeah, we're not going to pay for your insurance or your claim, right? What we are seeing is, carriers like CFC that paid 98% of their claims submitted last year, but they're going, yeah, you got $1 million, here's $1 million. And the customer's going, yeah, but my full breach cost was $2 million. No, we didn't quantify the risk up front. So that risk quantification and having a general idea of how much to buy is key when it comes to claim time. All right, next slide. Let's look at what controls to prioritize in. And Wilson, I know this is more your specialty. I know that this gap analysis is something that you walk through with every customer. Do you mind to talk a little bit about, because there's a lot of things to purchase out there, right? You've got the controls, you've got policies, procedures, you've got compliance. There's almost like an unending sea of things that I can purchase as a company. What is insurance, when we're looking through that insurance lens, what does insurance prioritize?
Yep. And look at the whole picture as well. I think it's important to know, like, smaller businesses aren't required at a certain standard. Bigger companies, larger companies with more revenue, bigger risk in the eyes of the carrier will need more, right, to get those lower premiums. But what carriers are looking at a base level is around MFA, multi-factor authorization at certain points, right? Coming out of COVID, MFA question was asked. Now they're getting it into email. Do you have multi-factor authorization on your email? I'm speaking to the extra text you get. Everyone's familiar with MFA now. Cloud-based third-party apps. Where are you storing data? What are you using on a daily basis? Where is your company information being housed? Access to those avenues. Same with backups. Your backups, your data, where are they lying? Who has access to that and how? And same with remote network access. I'm seeing that being a vulnerability for so many companies, being remote access outside of the network where bad actors can get access internally. And remote network access point need to be blocked and need to have MFA and need to be controlled with certain access for certain people. And then getting into additional core controls that many carriers ask about is backing up your data. How are you doing it? What vendors are you using? I'll use the vendor word a lot because carriers are starting to ask what vendors you're using for certain tools. Are you using 24/7 endpoint detection and response or managed detection and response? Carriers love this. 2022, there's a huge push for EDR and MDR tools because it's actually watching those endpoints and stopping attacks from happening, whether it's, alerting the right people internally or actual person being managed to stop those events from happening. So you can see why carriers give great discounts and great, premiums for companies that have EDR and MDR in place. And then you kind of get into patching and keeping updates and keeping your machines up to date, making sure you have those updates in Microsoft, right? There's small patches that can fix a lot of things. And then, train your employees, right? Sending and receiving money, people internally clicking links. People make the most mistakes. Usually starts with a person. Having security awareness training for each employee, whether it's monthly, whatever you do, make sure your employees are top of mind, especially with your business, and that they're trained on that with phishing simulations. You can test that. And then a lot of carriers, especially on the small business side, don't ask about this, but I like to bring it up is, formal process of sending and receiving money. Do you have policies and procedures in place? The most claims I file, I have a lot of insurance out there, is wire fraud, right? Or invoice manipulation, people giving out credentials to their email and bad actors getting in and affecting, payments being made. Businesses that are sending and receiving hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars a month, have those policies and procedures in place.
Yeah, it's all about it really is. It's about the layered security, right? At the end of the day, you have to have multiple things. Not only have the tools, but somebody's got to be monitoring and managing those tools, right? It's great to install them once, but you really have to stay up to date and be proactive on that. And, MFA, obviously on email at this day and age, you must have that. That's like the number one breach source there is if you don't have that, then you're in big trouble. And then going back to like, a lot of this is, like you said, education. A lot of the fraud, I guarantee, is people emailing account changes and that kind of stuff. When we talk to businesses from their accounting standpoint, they can't be emailing back and forth account changes. They got to pick up the phone, call the person and have that conversation because, even for our partners, we could protect their email, but we can't protect the people who are sending them email. And that's our biggest challenge, right? So a lot of this stuff happens and it's unintentional. And it's not malicious by the employees. And we also try to tell the employees and the owners to say, hey, if somebody clicks on something, they think something's fishy, put your hand up. Don't be scared that you're going to get in trouble. IT is no longer a IT issue. It's a company issue and everybody's get involved, right? And so unfortunately these days you can't trust anything. You have to double verify everything, right? So it's just the world we live in now. And so to reduce the chances that you have to go to insurance, you gotta implement the right tools. And that's where I will transition this over to Kevin. And Kevin is one of our partners, like talked about layered security. We also have a poll out there before we get into Kevin that's, do you have any regular tested incident response plan in case of a breach? You can put that in the Q&A, the answer. But yeah, so this is, passing on the Cynet. Kevin's been, they've been a partner with us for years and they're very proactive. So we have multiple layers of making sure we're proactive with our partners, keeping them up to date. And like I said, we vet all of our partners and qualify them to be the best for our clients. And Kevin is one of those people that we brought in. He's going to talk a little bit about his product.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Ralph. Thanks so much. So who is NIST? What kind of measures can we take to protect your organization and assist your journey to compliance, right? National Institute of Standards and Technology. I think a lot of folks have either heard of this or know of it. But NIST works in partnership with both the private sector and international standards to create its well-respected and widely used cybersecurity standards. And we actually reference this and sign it in a few ways. They have a national vulnerability database and lots of good things brought to the industry. Now, NIST has put together a cybersecurity framework. So cybersecurity threats continuously evolve. No single tool, can provide that complete protection. That's why NIST developed this framework as a layered, structured approach that guides organizations to build that resilience, right? The latest version introduces a new function, govern, and governance defines priorities. So risk appetite, accountability, ensuring cybersecurity decisions align with business objectives. So providing a foundation of the other 5 to operate effectively, right? It's making sure that these are all following things in a way that makes sense. And going through them here, identify being the first one, understand your risks, right? Assets, compliance needs, all these things, can be done with conducting risk assessments, identifying critical data, maintaining inventories, and ensuring compliance with regulatory frameworks, right? So security starts first with knowing what you're protecting. You're going over things, you're basically understanding what's there, and getting to know what needs to be done, right? And then the second one, protect. That's where you strengthen your defenses against attack. You deploy that MFA, endpoint security, firewalls, encryption, and then security awareness training, right? Keep those end users strong. They're the last layer of defense before your assets. preventative measures like this reduce the likelihood of an incident, right? So these are all the types of things we're doing to be more proactive. And then respond. Here we have now containing and the mitigating and preventing of damage, right? Starting to establish an incident response plan. A lot of people don't do that ahead of time. You don't want to do it in the moment, right? Coordinating with teams, ensuring regulators are quickly managed and controlled, right? So we need to know what's going on there, right? Recover. This is where we're restoring operations, we're strengthening security, deploying backups, disaster recovery solutions, and adapting policies on lessons that we've learned to emerge stronger after an incident, right? And by layering these functions together, guided by the governance, organizations can continuously adapt to threat landscape and reduce risk, strengthening resiliency and their own cybersecurity plans. Awesome. So in this, we're sort of talking to the partnership of ECMSI and SINET. So we have a cool fact here. 46% of all cyber breaches impact businesses with fewer than 1,000 employees. Pretty crazy. So they're going after the little guys. Couple of cybersecurity challenges that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Constantly evolving threat landscapes, right? Everything's always going to the cloud now. Everything's all going online. We got complex, fragmented IT environments trying to respond to that threat landscape, right? We're trying to plug in the responses to this ever-evolving landscape, and that's also complex. So now the IT teams are overextended. It's often really hard to find talent for those teams because they just, it's at that level of complexity and increasing regulatory and compliance demands, right? We're always saying, well, it's got to be more intense. It's got to be at this level, at that level. They're raising the demands because, cyber attackers are getting that much more vigilant, right? We got to be keeping up to date and raising the bar. And obviously pressure to reduce all these risks with the limited budget, right? We need to do this, but cybersecurity is not my main priority. I'm trying to sell something else. I'm trying to do something else. So
yeah, this goes back to customers just want to, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff with the layers, they're so focused on their business, they don't really react to any of this stuff until it's, it happens, and then they, the layers aren't there, and then they got to go through their cyber insurance. So it's, we're at the end of the day, us with SINET, we're trying to help businesses focus on just their business and not have to deal with some of the back end, right, IT stuff and how to stay proactive. And that's why you guys are very a great tool for us.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, we're trying to complement all the same things that you see in the cybersecurity space there. That was the 24/7 SOC, the MDR. We're bringing it in a portfolio effect, a platform effect. So where we have a lot of these, disparate IT vendors and products that are in the space, we're bringing a lot of those features under one roof. And now from SINET, all designed to do what we're doing here. It's more efficient, more scalable, and then we wrap that all with a 24/7 SOC team. So a human element with the technology. Now we are that much sharper. So really bringing it all together. And with the detection results that we've seen in MITRE, we're leaders in the past 2 years of their evaluations with 100% prevention and detection at 0 configuration changes. So we didn't do anything other than plug ourselves in, and we found all the stuff. So makes it easy for those IT teams to help scale and get the tool out there without having to mess with a bunch of features. Next slide. Awesome. So on this one here, essentially we're just showing the portfolio that SINET brings to the table. There's multiple pillars, as you can see: endpoints, networks, users, SaaS, third-party systems, and email. Our main bread and butter is the endpoint security, which covers Windows, Linux, and Mac devices. From that, we're able to identify user behavior analytics, network activity like suspicious network port scanning or things of that nature. We're also able to control the network web browsing. So somebody going to malicious websites would be dropped. We can tell them what types of websites we can go to. So no gambling, no games, things of that nature. And with integrations into our SaaS and cloud services that many folks already have, we can give you XDR alerting on 365 events like impossible travel, brute force attacks, and all kinds of things happening in 365. Finally, really the number one threat vector is email. So we got to have it in the mix. Email is going to allow us to get upstream in the attack cycle. So instead of things landing on the endpoint and then causing damage, which we would typically see things historically, we go upstream, we find it at the point of entry, which is email, and try to stop things there. So giving you the full, well-rounded experience. Yeah, next slide. The human element here really brings together the full picture, right? We have this portfolio of products that has been designed to work together harmoniously and scalable and does all these really nice things. But we couple that with a human element that's really trained to respond to incidents, but also does this every single day, right? They know how to respond, what to do first. They're already doing it, so they've got playbooks and they're staffed all the time. So where a lot of times attackers are more active during off hours, holidays, weekends, we got somebody there waiting, calling up, asking if anybody, needs help. They're also available if, you need to reach out for any questions. So really bringing that extended experts team to really extend your team. So.
Yep. So, that's it for, I know a couple of you joined late. We're going to have this recording to talk about, so you could go back and see some of the insurance stuff that we were talking about and the importance of it. So the next steps, if there's anybody on the call that needs to schedule a one-on-one consultation, please feel free. We'll do a free cyber checkup and hopefully shift focus back to your organization. I do want to thank, well, the next slide. I do want to thank Andy and Kevin and Wilson, Lauren and Kirsten for putting this together. We are going to have a raffle right now, so that we're picking winners as we speak. I think they're coming in now. It's a random draw. All right, so we have 3 winners actually. So I have a $25 for Rick Stunek. That's Stunek. Sorry if I messed up your name. I got a $50 Amazon card for a Pamela McConnell. And we also have a $100 gift card for a Daniel McFetridge. If I messed your name up, I apologize on that. But we will be reaching out to you on this stuff here. So, let's go to any of the Q&A and see if there's anything. Does anybody have any questions? Please post them in there. Let me go to Kristen just joined us. Let's see what we got here.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing there so we can get into Q&A.
Okay.
Looks like we do have, okay, sorry, it was the question for the poll, which was great. So we don't see, oh wait, we see some coming in. Okay.
I would say I will put something in that we didn't talk about from an insurance standpoint. Hopefully you never have to put in a claim, but if you do see a breach, make sure you reach out to your insurance company right away and just give them a heads up. Say you're not sure, even if you're not 100% sure, it's very important to get them on the line and just to make them aware. Don't try to, do it yourself and then call them 2 weeks after the breach and say, hey, I had a breach 2 weeks ago. We did all this stuff. I see that as common. I know back in the day when I first had to deal with something like that, calling your insurance is usually not top of line. It's more like, holy crap, our system's down. How do we get it back up and running? Right. So, but just make sure you have a good process for that and so that they understand. And again, these guys at UConn, they're not here to take over your insurance company. They're just there to partner with whoever you're using as far as a broker goes. They're here to make sure you're covered, make sure you're, if you do have an incident, that you have the right dollar amount to cover yourself. And also, hopefully, as we build our relationships with UConn, we reduce our partners that we work with, their costs, because we're implementing all the proper tools that they're looking for. And that goes back to what Kevin had said with the NIST standards. There's a lot of standards out there that are coming down the road, regulatory stuff that's really good for organizations. At the end of the day, security is a little bit of a pain, obviously. A lot of people don't like putting 2-factor on their Windows devices and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's how many locks can you put on the door? So
great. So it does look like we have a couple questions coming in. So what are the most common reasons businesses get declined for cyber insurance coverage? Andy Wilson, do you want to take that?
Yeah, well, so I've got my
Go ahead.
experience
No,
slash
go
opinion,
ahead.
but what are you seeing on the ground level first?
My thing with denials, I mean, I think any business could get a policy, right? You probably could get a policy, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg if you don't have great security in place. And you probably will have sublimited coverage and not, a great form. But there are some carriers, especially in some industries, that you only have two or three options, and you better hit those points or you're uninsurable. In certain industries. Andy, I don't know if you want to add to that,
Yeah,
but that's what I'm seeing.
the most common probably misconception is that if I accidentally mess something up on my app, I'm going to get denied, right?
Yep.
There's a difference between a accidental or small misattestation, right, and a gross misattestation. And the example that I always give, like we've talked about MFA a lot. Let's say you apply for cyber insurance and they say, do you have MFA on your backups and on your emails and remote logins? And you go, yes, 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 yes. And you have a ransomware event and forensics show up and there's not a stitch of MFA anywhere. You're going to get denied. You will be denied, right? In that scenario, you openly lied on your app and there's no indication that what you said was even remotely true, right? Now, let's say you go through and you say, yeah, we've got it on email, we've got it on backups. Well, an event happens and there was a new hire and they hadn't quite gotten fully onboarded and maybe they didn't have MFA on that one, you're not going to get denied there more than likely, right? That's a accidental scenario, right? So there is some gray area in that. I think that's probably the biggest misconception is that like, oh, if I mess up one little thing on this app, I'm going to get denied. The most common thing where we see folks getting denied is the buyer did not understand what they were purchasing, right? I bought a policy that did not have a stitch of crime coverage on it. And then I wired $60,000 to what I thought was one of my vendors, but it was really a hairy-legged Russian, right? And I go to make a claim with insurance thinking that I'm going to get paid back $60,000. And the carrier goes, no, you guys didn't have crime on that. Sorry, we won't pay it because it's not on the paper, right? That probably for me is the most common denial is just the buyer was not educated on what to purchase based on their risk.
Let me ask you this: on those type of incidents, do you require them to obviously have some type of policies, written policies of how they handle those transactions and stuff like that? Is that part of it?
So does insurance require it? Some carriers do, right? It depends on the risk, especially the larger ones, right? So like, is it blatantly required like across the board? No. Is it suggested by us? Absolutely, right?
Sure.
And that's where we get into the weeds as a specialist. And a couple of things we'll tell them. Number one, and we hit on this, offline, regularly tested, layered, detailed incident response plan. If you have an incident response plan that only deals with ransomware, right? And then you have BEC invoice manipulation, your incident response plan is not going to tell you anything, right? So,
Right.
if you don't mention third party outage and you're a car dealership and CDK Global goes down for 15 days, you have no idea what to do. So have that incident response plan made, have it multi-layered, have it address multiple scenarios. The second thing, right, is call your carrier before you have an event. Like when you get a policy, pick up the phone, we call it test the hotline, right? They've got an email address. They've got a 1-800 number. Call them and say, hey, who's my pre-breach legal counsel? Who's my legal counsel? Can I have a meeting with them pre-breach? How do I submit a claim? Is there anything that I need to know if I have a claim? You can ask all of those things as an insured. Hell, you're paying your annual premium. You might as well get something out of it if you don't have a claim, right? Like make them do their job. So we always encourage them to make a call beforehand to assist with those claims.
I'd say over the last few years, prior to COVID or right around COVID, you really didn't have to dot your I's or cross your T's. I felt the insurance companies had no idea what they were insuring. They were just paying claims because they would come in and check and see if you were doing X, Y, Z. They're like, oh, you lost data or you got ransomware. We're going to pay you whatever your policy says without any justification on the end users or the companies doing anything to try to protect themselves. So now I feel like it's taken a few years, but insurance claims, insurance. Let's be honest, insurance is not going to pay something that you're neglectful for.
That's it.
So,
listen, and that may seem cruel or harsh, but guys, it's no different on other lines of insurance, right? Like
right.
if I say that if I apply for a life insurance policy and I say that I don't drink and I don't smoke, and then I kick the bucket and they do my autopsy and I've got a little, tobacco, meth, and alcohol in there, probably not going to get paid on my life insurance policy, right? So, I mean, this is no different than any other lines of insurance. It's just people fuzz about it because they understand it less.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So there's another question here. How do you evaluate whether a customer's current tools and processes are enough to meet today's cyber threats? Hey,
For
Ralph, do you
me,
want to take that
I
one?
mean, that's for me, it's always more is better, right? We go above what the insurance, in my opinion, I feel we go above what the insurance want, because at the end of the day, what's expensive? Not the claim. The claim is, you want to be covered, but you want to prevent from being covered, right? You want to prevent from having, because what's expensive is downtime. What's expensive is you're locked up and you can't do anything for a week, 2 weeks. I mean, you hear, the good news is like government regulations are coming out and it's forcing some of these government agencies to protect themselves. I mean, we heard City of Cleveland was down for like a month. I mean, you hear these cities are getting breached. It's unfortunately local municipalities seem to be the least secure environments out there from our experience when we go in. So I think the more layers, we look at it from our partner standpoint is how do we reduce the risk at the end of the day? We've been doing this even before the insurance has been pushing this, because again, the pain of being down is very expensive. Especially the larger you are, the more cost it is, right? If you're paying 100 employees to sit around for 2 weeks to do nothing, that's a lot of money, especially in the manufacturing world or any of those, where you're really producing stuff. So, and insurance, every broker has a little bit of different flavor, but they already talked about some of that stuff, like the MFA. They have their checklist of things that they minimally require to process claims, right? So, yeah, more is better in my opinion. So we always look at it for our partners is what are we doing for ourselves? And whatever we do for us, we want to push to our partners. We don't sell anything. We don't sell anything that we're not using, right? So it's about security. And that's why we bundle everything. We don't a la carte things. I don't think you should go to your IT provider and say, hey, we only need this or that or this. It's like you going to the doctor and telling the doctor, I don't want that kind of surgery. I want you to do this. I mean, what are you going to the doctor for if you're going to tell him what to do, right? So we're trying to educate our partners and say, hey, this isn't about a sales tactic. This is about, covering yourself, protecting yourself, making sure your business is, going to stay productive.
And I'll add, Ralph, to that just a little bit more of a, I don't know, opaque or, whatever holistic answer to that, to that, a little bit wider. When we get claims and we see people get in a bind almost to a T, you can add, if we would have backed out before the claim and asked like, hey, what's the culture from the top down of the organization around cybersecurity? That's a pretty good indicator of are they prepared,
no doubt,
right? If the board's bought in and they see it as a risk and the CFO understands it and they've invested, more often than not, when the claim happens, things end up going okay and they're able to survive. If we have people that are laissez-faire about it, if they don't care, if they act like, oh, well, we can't, I mean, we would just, if we got ransom, we wouldn't pay the ransom. We would just go to paper. We'd be fine. Those are the folks that we tend to see. So, I mean, that's maybe a little bit more of an abstract answer, right? But I would say,
you're not wrong. Yeah, you're not
evaluate wrong. your company culture from the top down. And if the top is not seeing this as important, then you're probably in a bad spot.
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, we get a lot of calls after the fact that then they start looking at it as a serious issue when something happens, unfortunately, right?
It's too late.
So,
yep.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, we're very close. Sometimes they're very close and they didn't quite get taken down, but they were right on the edge. And so, that's when they start to value it, right? I mean, unfortunately, older generation businesses they never dealt with what we're dealing with. The younger generation is going to grow up and they're going to say, yeah, this is just, this is what we have to do. Unfortunately, some of the older generations are, we haven't used technology. We've never had a problem, and so they wing it until there is a problem. So. All right.
Okay, thank you. So I know we're coming up to a minute left, so maybe we'll say our thank yous and goodbyes. Ralph, I'll leave it to you for the final words.
All right. Well, again, I thank everybody who joined and took the time. I know everybody's busy, but I think this is a good topic that every business should be sitting around talking about, even from the top level down. Like Andy said, this is a culture that, IT is a culture now. We need to be able to talk about it with our employees and our staff and talk about what good looks like. And, people don't like change, but change is always coming in the IT world. So we continue to add layers, and look for the best interest. And I just want to say thank you to Andy and Wilson for, joining us. And again, Kirsten, for joining us, and everybody else that's participated in this event. And again, we'll have another one coming up with just a general topic one next month that we're putting on here at ECMSI. Our goal is at the end of the day is just try to continue to educate our partners and people out there in the community. Whoever wants to join, we hope more and more people join. These are just business conversations. We're not pushy on our sales. If you think, we're the company for you, we'll sit down and have a business conversation. If not, hopefully you'll take some of this stuff here that we're passing on, and you'll go back and you'll sit with your insurance broker and ask them some appropriate questions, right? And so, yeah. So again, thank you. And for everyone who participated, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you, Ralph.
All right. Thanks, guys.
everyone.
Thanks.